Good afternoon, good evening, good zinta, good y'all, whatever it may be where you are. I'm not Sports Cards. Hope you're doing well. Remember to like and subscribe. Small YouTube channels like us do well when we get more subscribers. You hit the thumbs up button or comment or whatever you do. Today, I'm going to talk about something that's been discussed in the hobby a little bit over the last few weeks about fake PSA slabs. Now, you might or might not have taken in some content where you've heard some of the points here. I want to take from a different angle. A couple things I want to look at is how easy it would be to fake a PSA label, or what the cost would be, I should say. And the other side is how it impacts the cost or the value of your cards. Most people are focusing on the idea that, oh, there are fakes out there. This is bad or scary. Jeff Wilson did a video where he was at a show and some guy was selling, they call proxy Pokemon cards, where they were essentially fake cards, but they in fake slabs, and they were telling people that they were fake. That is obviously the most benign part of this problem. That where somebody tells you it's fake. Now, obviously, once that person has it, they may sell it to somebody else. The question is like, how does it impact your collection, and how should it impact your buying? How will what's the impact as time goes on? I have in the background here somebody over on Reddit put together like a pretty detailed idea of. Let me switch myself to the small version of me. Watch me shrink myself real quick. There I am. I'm much smaller. They did this real detailed thing of transparent versus opaque, and looking at when the labels and the watermarks are, and what the different points on the labels are, and then you go into the welding, the corners of the welding. That's a lot, right? That's a lot to look at, and it's a lot to look at in one setting. And obviously, depending on where you buy the card, like if you're not in person, you can't do that. If you're buying it on eBay, that's a different thing. They have their authenticity stuff on there. This person's pretty in depth. This is called Lumabels on Reddit. That's where I think mostly those other guys got their information. But what I did was I thought it'd be interesting to go over to our friends at ChatGPT and be like, hey, I want to start a can I not increase the zoom size? There we go. I want to start a grading company. In theory, I wasn't telling ChatGPT that I wanted to create fake labels, but what I wanted to know is if I wanted to create, like I asked initially, and it gave me an idea of like, hey, listen, you could, for initial setup, you could probably do 50 cents a slab for 50,000 slabs for 50 cents each is what they told me. Which, if you thought about it, hey, and this included, oh, that's the empty slabs. This might be, okay, let's go here. Okay. This is the one where I say, hey, I want a PSA level grading environment, slab environment. I want to use similar welding technology, the sonic welders, because like if you watch some of the other videos, you're like, well, they're gluing them together. Scammers and counterfeiters are, there's two versions of them. There's the smart ones and the dumb ones. And the dumb ones, we don't really have to be that worried about. They're going to get caught, and that it's not going to be that pervasive. It's not going to be at scale. Yes, some people are going to get scammed. And by the way, counterfeits have been an issue for as long as trading cards have been valuable. It's part of the reason that grading came to be, was that it wasn't just for the how good a copy was, whether it was mint or PSA 10, or it was also, is this real? Has it been altered, and all these other things? So, counterfeiting has been a problem for a long time. But so the idea of counterfeiting slabs is also not new. a few years ago, there were Beckett slabs that were counterfeited, and this often just gets swept under the rug. The truth about this is that nobody wins if this turns out to be a problem. Like in the industry, the PSA doesn't win, Beckett doesn't win, SGC, CGC. None of these companies win, and us as card collectors, we don't win either because our card prices go down. The only people who win are the counterfeiters and scammers. Now, again, getting back to the good scammers, bad scammers. I mean, with adept should probably be the better word. I always think of a foreign organized crime group, most likely out of Asia, but could be out of anywhere, where they are living in a country that has less strict laws about copyright and things like that, and that if they had the manufacturing equipment, that they could just do this without a lot of concern. So they could, again, when you get into fake slabs, there are multiple types, but there are fake slabs with fake cards in them, meaning like the whole thing's fake. That you buy the card's fake, the slab is fake. There are ones where the slab is fake and the card is real. There are also ones where the slab is fake, but the label inside is real, and the card is real, but not the one that maxes up. Meaning, like, they cracked open a PSA 10 Michael Jordan, and then they put a PSA 8 in there, and they put the PSA 10 label in there, and then they would send the Michael Jordan back to PSA to get graded again. So they have a 10, they sell the 8 as a 10, and repeat, and so on. That one is actually the hardest to stop, and that's part of what I want to say here, is because when that was brought up in some of the videos, they're like, well, these people are gluing the stuff back together. Well, you can buy a sonic welder for, how much does a sonic welder cost? Where is it in here? Okay, it doesn't give me the specific price here. I think it's like $1,500. Like somewhere between $1,500 and $3,000. So like the entry point, again, I'm a little bit all over the place, but the cost of starting up your own grading company is like 25 grand. Now, and you can do it on a lower level. So let's say you wanted to do the thing where you were going to use real slabs or fake slabs, real labels, real cards. That is super cheap. You can do that for a few $1,000s. And think of how easy that is to make up. And given some of the inaccuracies at PSA, let's just take, for example, that you were going to do it with Michael Jordan rookies. And you're basically going to do 7s to 6s. And that's I'm going to guess a not $5,000, a couple $1,000 difference, $2,000 difference. Like, and you just did that all day long, and you just kind of went back and forth and back and forth. It can be very pervasive. Now, you're limited because you have to constantly be buying the cards. If you're making fake cards, then it gets a lot easier. If you're making fake labels, it's easier to track, right? Because the labels, I guess they'll still be in the PSA system. I mean, it's kind of a nuts thing. Like, I don't think there is a proper solve on this. Like, it is a cat and mouse game of constantly PSA is making better, more secure slabs and labels that are tamper proof. You can't crack them. The labels, you can't reproduce them. But it's kind of hard to like make something that would like destroy the label if it opens up, but not destroy the card, and make something that other people can't do, meaning like replicate. The technology is out there, and the same is true with card printers, which is like, how expensive is it to get a card printer? But I digress. So let's just say the PSA is able to stay ahead of the game. They're able to continue to create better labels, better slabs that are harder to, fake and reproduce. Well, what do we do about things like this? This is a 1980 Topps Ricky Henderson. I mostly mess with non-sports cards, but I try to just pick a card that I thought would be in this game. So this is an old label, and it is like the worst. I have old labels, and most of the cards I have. I I guess this person is showing off. I don't know if they're showing off the card or they're showing off the. I think they're showing off the card, not the actual PSA slab. But obviously, technology that is, let's say, 10 years old is easier to fake. Like, to fake an old PSA label and an old PSA slab has to be much easier than faking a new one. So I would assume faking a slab for this would be a lot easier than faking a slab on a brand new card. Well, that benefits new cards, but that is a constant problem, meaning if technology has to get better, it means whatever we're using today will be easier to fake in the future. It's just where we're at, right? Like, it's just, this is a conversation that has been being had every year for years, and it will continue to be had. The issue is, as cards get more valuable, ultimately, the more valuable, if cards were worth $5, it wouldn't be worth spending $25,000 or $50,000 on equipment to fake it. Now, again, if you were a sophisticated organized crime syndicate from somewhere in Southeast Asia and you wanted to, you had access to printers. Let's say you were in the document business. You made a couple of phony documents here and there. Do you think if you could produce a passport, you couldn't produce a card and a label? Now, I'm just pointing, like, I'm just theorizing in your head. It's like, okay, I can make there are people out there that can do stuff like that. And they'll be like, hey, I can sell this document for $25,000, or I can make this card. And the risk is much higher on making a fake government document than making a card. I'm going to make cards. And then I'm going to ship them off to my cousin in the United States who goes to card shows and sells them. That is, that, like, obvious. A lot of this, if you think about what I'm talking about, goes back to the, I guess it got swept under the rug. It was 6 months ago, this enormous autograph forgery ring. It was like a huge thing. So much stuff is fake. Same situation. No one in the industry benefits from it being found out. If there were $50 million worth of forgeries on the market, nobody wins, right? The people who own it don't win. The people who make it don't win. The people who grade it don't win. The only people who win are the people who are selling it. And if they stop selling it, it's why we don't hear about it anymore. And it's the same thing with fake slabs. Nobody is going to want to talk about this in depth because nobody wins. I don't want my slabs to be fake. You don't want your slabs to be fake. PSA wants the same thing, and so does Fanatics and everybody else. But it is a question, and at some point, if it becomes more pervasive, what happens? So we have the startup costs, we have the other costs. So another thing that I just talked to our pals at ChatGPT about, or just like eBay. So my thoughts on this are a little bit about how this will impact different segments of the market. Let's just say that we determine that 5% of PSA slabs are fake. Obviously, it's going to be mostly on... You would think that people would do it on cards that have higher value and are known to have higher value. It's more likely to be something like a Michael Jordan rookie or whatever, high-end Pokemon, high-end... They're not going to spend their time making fake $50 slabs. They're going to make fake, $500 to $25,000. It is plausible. You'd say to yourself, they're going to focus on the highest possible stuff. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Counterfeiters of like currency learned after a while, it's like it's much easier to get away with kind of 10s and 20s than it is hundreds. People pay a lot more attention to them. It's like if you take a 10 to the local convenience store, they don't run the marker over it. They only do it on bigger bills. Some don't do it on 20s or 50s, only on hundreds, but they'll do it on 5s and 10s. So, if you wanted to get away with it, what would you do? Again, you've got to think like a criminal to think about how this plays out. But my feeling is that, if we live in a world where, a decent percentage of slabs were faked, and I think it'd be somewhere in that 5% range where you'd really have to worry about it. There's two things to worry about. Like, obviously buying, right? Because you're like, I don't want to buy a fake slab. And, going back to this Ricky Henderson here, it's like, by the way, I'm not saying in any way that this is a fake slab. I don't think it is. I'm just pointing at like this slab of being the buyer of this, or also the owner of it. Because like I said, I own slabs that are old, and they don't fall into the category of, hey, I think somebody would have faked this slab when I bought it. I bought it 4 years ago. The car was worth $100 at that point, and it would have made 0 sense for the person to do this. There were a million other cars, but hey, if that car grows to be now it's worth $5,000. If you buy a car that significantly appreciates, now it might be worth it for somebody to create a fraudulent slab around it. And then it becomes your problem, right? This person might have bought this card when it was, $100, or they might have graded themselves and it was whatever. And now the card is worth $2,000. And so it affects, obviously when you're buying, you don't want to buy something that is not authentic. But as a seller, it could hurt the value of your cards. Where does this, there are some people that can backdoor benefit from this. Like PSA is in this weird spot of, obviously, if their authenticity is brought into question, that hurts their brand. But they're too big to fail at this point, in my opinion. Too big to fail. So I don't even, unless it caused a total collapse of their business, I think it'll actually help them. I know that sounds stupid, but you have this, this card here. It's like, guess what you really need to do is you need to get it reholdered. You need to pay money to update your slab. It sucks, right? But that's kind of the case. Like, I have some of those older slabs that have appreciated in value, and it's like, I got to pay. Now that they've appreciated, when you sent the slab in the first time, it was $15. Now it's a $2,000 card. They're like, we want $150. You're like, God damn, so it's kind of a crazy business model to think about it. Like, it might benefit PSA just a little bit, just to make you think that slabs might just be fake enough that you might need to regrade, that we force the market to regrade these old slabs and they do better. And again, the other, sounds like a tinfoil hat brigade here. I'm not saying this. I'm just workshopping this here. We're just talking theory. But the other part is like, okay, if you're buying slabs, let's just talk about the ways you buy it. You buy them at a local card shop. You buy them at a card show. You could buy them online. Now, online, I am not sure about the authenticity guarantee of things like Golden or Heritage or places like that. I truthfully don't know. And they may have them. Any place that has an authenticity guarantee actually would benefit from this, because people would be willing to pay a slight premium for a place that guarantees it. The same, like, hey, if you think things are 5%, it's like insurance, right? I'm willing to pay 5% insurance on my house in case something happens to it, that I get a new house. But then you have the other two, card shows and LCSs. Now, LCSs, anybody who has a real physical footprint that is not going anywhere the next day is not going to look to grift you nearly as much. I'm not saying that there are tons of people who are grifters or whatever that would do this. And I'm not pointing it out. I'm just using basic logic. Is that if you're moored in a place, you're not going to, grift your customers unless you're, on your way out. Card shows, on the other hand, where these are transient people and you're not going to see them next week, or you may not, they're more likely to grift. Now, that even in a card show situation, it's like, hey, that guy's been around for 30 years. He goes to every show. He's not really going to be the one that you're going to be like, okay, if somebody was here selling fake slabs, again, on purpose. There are people who may buy them and sell them without any knowledge of it. Ostensibly, whoever has more to lose and a better reputation is less likely to do it. So it hurts kind of new small entrants to the market. It's kind of it's the economic term is barrier to entry, and now creates a bigger barrier to entry. So the new guy who comes in, he's a little more suspect. So if his prices end up having to be lower than that guy who's been in the business for 10 or 20 years, it's harder to become, to kind of get into the business. And it's just interesting. It's the same thing along the grading side, the LCS side, the card stuff. It is benefiting the entrenched powers in the industry to this. So I don't know. I began this with saying, should you be worried? How should you be worried about fake PSA slabs? I would say, the answer is, how skeptical are you of general stuff? It says general up there. Meaning, like, caveat emptor, buyer beware. If something seems too good to be true, you should think about it more. Think about all the things I just said. Is somebody who's been in the business longer, has more to lose, is less likely to do this on purpose. But you should also think about when you're buying slabs, like what era are you buying from, and also your own collection. Should you be considering reholdering? How will that impact the value of your slabs going forward? I do think at the end of the day, this gets swept under the rug all the time. I've said it multiple times throughout the video that nobody benefits from this being accurate. Nobody, not except for the criminals. And if they're stopped, like, that's why, again, they find a big ring of people doing fake autographs. They just stop them, and we don't hear any more about it, because that's what keeps the wheels of the industry flowing. Finding a major problem and honing in on it doesn't keep the wheels of the industry flowing. So I would tell you to beware. The bigger the card, the more I'm worrying about it. Like, man, I really hate for, like, this person's Ricky Henderson. Like, I'm not. This is eBay, right? So like that like, if this were at a card show from somebody who sells on the weekend every once in a while, like, you take the extremes. This card is guaranteed by a publicly traded company. That is one extreme. The other extreme is, hey, some guy who you've never seen before is selling it and wants you to pay cash on the weekend, right? Like, here you pay with a credit card, and it's a publicly traded company, so you have your credit card on your side, you have eBay on your side to protect you if there's a problem. And I haven't brought up the PSA guarantee, but like, that doesn't work if it's a fake slab. Like, PSA does not guarantee fake slabs. They will guarantee, like, if you have a real slab and there's a fake card in it, or the card has been misgraded, they'll give you money. But they're not going to be like, hey, you bought a fake slab, we're going to reimburse you. That's not something they cover. So yeah, I think it's worth considering in kind of in that, like, grayscale. People want a firm answer to the initial question is, should you be concerned about fake slabs? It's like, you should always be concerned about, on some level, a fraudulent activity in anything you're involved in, to the level that you're invested, right? If you have $1,000 worth of cards and you're a millionaire, I don't think you care. If you have $100,000 worth of cards and you're worth $110,000, you should be more worried. That's my thought. People want these kind of black and white answers, but the answer is always in between. So I would definitely be, in certain instances, I'd be more concerned, and in other instances, I'd be less concerned. So yeah, that's kind of my thought on fake slabs. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I know I have. Albert's snoring underneath me. Love to hear what you're thinking. Like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, I'm Not Sports Cards, and I am out.